All right, so that's the basics of cell arrays. Let me show you one of the most common things that it's used for, which is graphical user interface programming. So we're going to come back in a couple of weeks and talk about full-blown GUI programming. But for right now, I'm just going to show you a couple of really basic things that can make your programs more interactive. Really a step up from just doing simple command line input and output. That is a dialog box for input and a message box for output. So let me just show you what it looks like so you see what I'm talking about. All right, so this is a dialog box. It's just a second window that opens up with different fields, and the user can enter values in those fields and then click OK. So the way we do that in MATLAB is input DLG, input dialog, and then you give the names of the fields as a cell array. Okay, so these are very closely connected with cell arrays. Okay, so you can see each field has a little name here, so the little title, so the user knows what to put in there. The mass, the deploy time, drag coefficient, initial height. The next thing that comes here is the title of the dialog box, whatever you want it to be. Right, so I chose to call this parameters. You see it shows up here in the corner of the window. The next one is the size of each field. This says make each field 1 row by 60 columns. And the only reason I made it that wide is because if you make it narrower than that, then there's not enough room to print parameters and it gets cut off. And then lastly, the default values. So there's another cell array here that provides the values that will already be in the fields when it first opens up. And notice these are in quotes, because the information that's being put into a dialog box is strictly text information. It looks like numbers, I know, but it's not. It's just text. It has to be converted to numbers. Right? So when you do the dialog box, whatever was entered in the fields will be stored in this variable, which you supply, as a cell array. Right? So you've got a cell array with these different character arrays that represent the numbers. And then you convert it to actual numbers using string to double. Okay. So now param_vals is an actual numerical array. I can use those values in my simulation or whatever I'm doing. Now, what would happen if the user entered something in one of the fields that really didn't represent a valid number? Oops, wrong cell. Wait, what happened here? What happened to my dialog box? There we go. I think I was on the wrong cell. Okay. All right. So let's say I make a typo or something and I type an X. So it puts that in the cell array. That's just text information. But then when it tries to convert it to a number, it recognizes that's not a valid format for a number, so it makes it a nan, not a number. All right, so you could do error checking using the isNan function like you're using in the application. And if there are any nans in there, then you know that the user didn't enter something correctly and you could display an error message. All right, so that's graphical input with a dialog box. Then you run your simulation and you want to display the results, and you can do a message box, which is another window that comes up that has some messages in it. And the function to do that is msgbox. And you just list as a string array whatever messages you want to display. Okay, so this has these two messages, one for the max velocity, one for the time to reach the ground. Now, how do you create these messages? Probably the most convenient way, the most flexible way, is with sprintf, which works just like fprintf, except instead of printing it to the command window, it just stores it in a variable. Okay, so message 1 will be a character array that has this message in it. Okay, but everything else is just like fprintf. You use the format descriptors, Put a \n if you want to go to the next line and so forth. Okay, so when I run this, separate window will pop up and the user can acknowledge it by clicking OK.